So, Microsoft asked this question. It says, what's up, eTechnics? It said this: Microsoft investigates why game developers choose PlayStation 5 over Xbox. Why developers choose PS5 over Xbox? That would be like asking, okay, why do some people like fish over chicken, or chicken over fish? I'm just joking. Or better yet, why do some I'm gonna get myself in trouble for saying this. Or better yet, like why do some black men like Asian girls, white girls, Mexican girls, Indian girls over black women? But you get the point. Look, why do game developers choose PS5 over Xbox? Let me read this article. Oh, by the way, hello viewers. Another beautiful day. Yeah, hope your five senses work. Health and strength is good or excellent. What? All right, look. It says here, Microsoft has launched an investigation to understand why game developers are prioritizing the PS5 over Xbox. The tech giant aims to bridge the gap, with the developers focusing on specific reason behind the shift and seeking feedback to improve their platform appeal. The delay of games like Baldur's Gate 3 due to the Series X and S limitation, as well as challenges from studios like team behind Enotria, The Last Song, have highlight frustrations in working with Xbox. According to a recent blog post, Microsoft is determined to understand these issues and work towards solutions. Dr. Deborah Henderson, Xbox principal user researcher, anyway, says there, expressed this sentiment by stating, if you aren't on Xbox, we'd love to know why. If you are using your competitors' products, you'll probably have a great perspective we could learn from. Microsoft is actively listening to studios that are not currently releasing games on their platform, hoping to gain insight into how they can improve relationships and support development teams better. This research is viewed as a step towards building a stronger ecosystem for both developers and games alike. This decision has got gamers talking about Microsoft might do close the gap. What Microsoft might do to close the gap with Sony in the ongoing console battle. Fans are curious about how these changes could shape the future of gaming on Xbox and whether it helped them compete more with PS5. Okay, that's the end of the article. Good article, eTechnics. Look.com, that is. Look. It started with the PlayStation 1, man. Because you have to look back at, Microsoft, you got to understand, when Sony came in with the PS1, they built a lot of relationship and trust with developers, man, during the PlayStation 1 era. And that carried over into the PS. I mean, they rescued Squaresoft, now known as Square Enix, from Nintendo, because once Square and Nintendo part ways back in the PlayStation 1 days, Sony reaped the benefits of that, and then Sony formed a bond and a friendship and a relationship with Square. So wherever you see Final Fantasy, you see wherever you see Square with Final Fantasy, you see PlayStation. So and then the floodgates of video games were open. The PlayStation 1 started all that. So as far as console goes, the PlayStation 1 started all that, man. The floodgates were open. So Sony built a good relationship, with all these developers, man. And then it carried from the PlayStation 1 into the PlayStation 2. The PlayStation 1 had a big user base, a huge one. But the PlayStation 2 now, yeah, when they came out with that DVD player for video games, the floodgates even expanded. Developers flood the PS2 and with the games, man. So Sony, they got a knowledge and wisdom and understanding and reasoning and I would say compassion and listening, to developers, and caring about what developers want and need when it comes to video games. So when Sony came out with the PS1 and PS2, when they came out with the PS2, Microsoft came into the console business, and Sony had a head start. So between the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, those relationships that Sony formed, they were big, and they carried over into the PS3, and even PS4, and now PlayStation 5. So when it comes to this game industry, man, Sony had a head start, with Xbox, and then Nintendo, they being stubborn, when it came to CDs and video games, Sony reaps the benefits of all that. So with the PlayStation 1, so it carried all the way into the PlayStation 5. So Sony was always like listening to the developers and working with them and building friendships and building relationships and building trust and building knowledge and wisdom and understanding and reasoning of video games, man. Microsoft, when they came into the Xbox, came into video games with the Xbox, with the Xbox, sure, they had their own games. They came in with Halo and Bungie, and they should have kept Bungie, by the way. They should have. Microsoft had some grounds to cover, because the gap that the PS1 carried was huge, and it carried over into the PS2, PS3, PS4, and PS5. So, and then Microsoft, when they messed up, the 360 had the red ring of death. Okay, and then the Xbox One situation. The Xbox One situation. Yeah, Sony reaps the benefits of that. So Sony always listened to developers, man. When it came to video games, and that's what I think Microsoft have to work on. When it comes to these developers, not being so quick. I would say not being so quick of like closing studios just because a game didn't perform well. Like take Redfall. Redfall could have been the foundation for Redfall 2, because if the first game is like the foundation, but then the second game builds on top of the first game. And to me, Microsoft should have never I would say close Arcane Studios, and they shouldn't have was it Arcane? I think Arcane Studios, and they shouldn't have closed what's that? The Hi-Fi Rush Studios, because they just purchased Activision Blizzard. So to me, they should have never even touched Hi-Fi Rush Studios and Arcane. They should have left them alone and let them work on the games that they need to work on and fix what they need to fix. And to me, they should have, when they purchased Activision Blizzard, they should have left Activision Blizzard as is, meaning that you need people to make games and then weather the storms of whatever situation that they're about to face, and then keep making games and update, and then it will pay off in the end. That's what I'm thinking. So when it comes to this video game industry, man, it's just that Sony was always being reasonable with Sony listened to developers, and tried to work with them, and some of these developers, they're in Sony's backyard, meaning that they're Japanese companies or Asian companies, and they're overseas, so they're in each other's backyard, so they would prefer to work with Sony and probably work with Microsoft. So that plays a factor too, man. But when it comes to this video game industry, man, like I said before, communication is big. I've been said this. It's big in video games, and talking to developers and listening to their needs and wants, what they want, using the latest tech in your console to keep the game industry moving. All that plays a part, man. So that's why I think Sony has the edge over Xbox. One, because of the head start with PlayStation 1 and the history, man. And Sony was always capitalizing off Nintendo. Sony capitalized off Nintendo's mistake and Microsoft mistakes, you know. So that's why they're so they're doing so good. And then, of course, the exclusives that they make too, that plays a factor too, you know. Now some people might try to use the single player experience as a racism term, but that's a different argument for a different day. But also the exclusives, and yeah. But I think that's the reason why PlayStation is so successful, man. Yeah, because of the PS1 and reaping the benefits of Squaresoft, now known as Square Enix, man. Yeah. Xbox, I mean, they learn from their mistakes and they grow, you know. They learn from their, I think they learn from their mistakes and they grow, you know. Them buying Activision Blizzard, that was a good move on their part, you know, because basically, you know, Activision Blizzard was really up for grabs, and anybody, like I said, anybody with big pockets could have gotten them, you know. So yeah, Microsoft seized the opportunity, but now it's all about you know, like folk getting games made. The other thing I think Microsoft did wrong, kind of messed up on too. It's like, okay, you know, taking some of their games and okay, Minecraft on PlayStation, okay, fine. I would say Minecraft on PlayStation was fine, but to me, I think they should have kept Sea of Thieves on Xbox. You know, keep it on Xbox, but then taking Ori and then giving it to Nintendo. I thought they should have kept that, you know. But you know, letting go of Bungie is another thing that hurts, you know, because you could have had both Destiny and Halo on the same platform. Like I said before, it would have been interesting to see how 343 and Bungie would have worked. Yeah, just making, you know, I think the key errors that they made, you know, but I think Microsoft learned from their mistakes and they're trying to grow. But now that they got Game Pass and they got Activision Blizzard now, it's all about making games now, you know. So that's what it comes down to, you know. So yeah. So working with developers, man, you know, working with developers and communicating with them, and paying attention to details, all that, man, that plays a factor into it. I think the other thing I think that really hurted Xbox too. That really hurted Xbox is that console ban that they have. You know, it really hurt them too, because the way they were going about it. Because I was the person it was me that explained the console ban to everybody so they can understand what was happening to them. Because you had the Xbox One, but you were charging people for on and offline play, and then the consumer never had full control of the console. You never did. You know, and then they were charging you for off and online play, meaning that the only way to use the Xbox One was online only. But then you gave the user base an option for offline play, but they still weren't offline physically. They were offline digitally, because offline play means that there is no internet connection. There's no internet connection to your console. Offline play means that you're offline with no internet connection. You can play the game as you want. Offline. So once you were doing that, man, you were hurting your user base. And then the Xbox One now, since it didn't have an offline play before, you know, it means that the console was disposable. So you were like banning people to make it look like you were banning people at a rapid rate, and then you were forcing them now to buy a new console so they can get back online, and then they got to create a new user account so they can play their so they can get back online to play their video games. And that really hurted you, man, that console ban that you got in place. And you know, once I brought that up, man, Microsoft now decide like, oh, you know, once I brought that whole situation up, all of a sudden, you know, you can play your physical disc offline on the Xbox One, but before you couldn't do it. And then with the Activision Blizzard court drama, it was shield hiding it so you couldn't see it. So I kept making YouTube videos about this, and they finally listened, and all of a sudden, you know, you can be on your Xbox One now offline playing your games, but before you couldn't do it. So they that console ban was hurting them. And to show you that they didn't want you to own the Xbox One now, what did they do? They cut off the Blu-ray drive now. They disabled the Blu-ray drive on the Xbox One. So now the only way to use the Xbox One now is to buy games digitally from the Microsoft Store to play them. That console ban situation was really hurting their user base numbers, man. And a lot of people like that had an Xbox One, once they went through that situation, they left Xbox and never came back. You know, some people stayed, but a lot of them, they left and never came back, man. So that console ban situation, man, was nasty, man. And I had to explain it to people like, man, they were charging you. They made the Xbox One a disposable console. They didn't want you to own the system. They were charging you for off and online play. They gave you an option for offline play, but you still weren't offline. You were online playing with an offline feature, meaning that while you're so-called online, the system was still collecting updates, and they wouldn't let you use a physical disc. So that console ban, man, it really hurted them. So to try to save themselves now, they so-called, you know, disabled the drive on the Xbox One, so you couldn't use a physical disc on it. And once gamers And then once gamers got learn about it, a lot of them left and never came back. Okay, and then when you buy the digital games now on the Xbox from the Xbox store, you couldn't play them offline. For instance, like I bought Fatal Fury Special from the Microsoft store. It was in the Xbox Arcade, and I tried to play that game offline with with no internet connection. And what I got to find out is that when you buy the games on the Xbox on Xbox system, the full game was never being installed on the console. The full game was never being installed on the console. It was the demo. So when I took it offline to go play it, I only had access to 2 characters. Stuff like that was hurting the Xbox ecosystem. So Sony reaps the benefits of that, man, with their PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. You know, so developers, Sony listened to the developers, man, and tried to work with them. You know, work with them, with the developers. Sony don't come into the to me, Sony don't come into the video game industry like, oh, we're Sony, do what we say, blah 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 blah. Sony listened to the developers, and work with them behind the scene, and like, okay, so you need this, and this in the console for next gen. Okay, fine. We're building the PlayStation, say 6, whatever. This is what's gonna be inside of it. And they send developers kits out, and the developers, they love what they see, and then just like that. So Sony's always listening. Microsoft, on the other hand, they have to learn how to communicate better with developers. Now, when they build the Xbox One S, not the One S, but the Series X, the Series S, when they built it, they created a bottleneck. They created a bottleneck with the Series S. You know, when the PlayStation 5 came out, they were using the same hardware, same specs. One physical, one digital. Microsoft, on the other hand, now they built when they came out with the Series X. The Series X is up here in all power and specs, but the Series S is down here. So you created a bottleneck with between the Series X and the Series S, versus like building the Series X all powerful, and they're like, okay, and then make the digital version with the same specs but no disk drive. That's all they had to do. So when they did that, man, when they made that mistake with the Xbox Series X, Sony reaps the benefits. Every mistake that that Microsoft like made console design wise, every mistake they made, Sony reaps the benefits of it. I mean, look at the PlayStation 4, Xbox One situation. Sony reaps the benefit of it. Look at the PS5 versus the Series X. Sony reaps the benefit of that. So every mistake that Microsoft made, Sony reaps the benefits. Every mistake that Nintendo made, Sony reaps the benefits of it. So in this video game industry, it's about communication, listening, agreements, meeting the developers' needs, stuff like that, man. I mean, getting an insight on what developers want and how they want the console built, and all that plays a part, man, of being successful in this game industry. But Sony really had a head start, though, when it comes between the debate between the Series X and PS5. Sony had a head start with the PlayStation 1, man. So the PlayStation 5 success is because of the head start that Sony had with PlayStation 1. Yeah, the PlayStation 5 is the PlayStation 1's bigger brother, man. So yeah, and Sony always been listening, man. So Microsoft now, they have to when they build their consoles, man, they have to like build a console with the same specs, not one with the specs up here and then the specs down here. They have to build them this, and then okay, have one physical and one digital going forward. Okay, and then and then carry on from there. But them purchasing Activision Blizzard was a good move for Microsoft. Was a good move, was a good move for them. Them building Game Pass was a good thing for Microsoft. But now, console design wise, now, if you on your next Xbox, when you build it, you have to build them with the same specs. It can't be one spec here and then one with the specs down here. Can't be like that, man. So yeah, I think that's what they need to do. But as far as like with developers, man, it's about communication. You got to communicate better with developers, yeah, and then go on from there. But other than that, man, Sony just had a head start, a good head start too. So the reason why PS5 is so successful is because of the PlayStation 1. Bottom line. But anyway, that's just my thoughts on the whole thing, though. But yeah, Microsoft. I mean, they can grow from this. They can grow, but they have to start making the changes now. That's what they gotta do. They have to start making the changes now. And then carry on from there. Anyway, I'm going to leave this video for y'all to enjoy though. Nice talking to you people again. Chris, still a Star Wars, Star Trek thing. Board, Dark Section. Come on. Peace.